Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, folks. Michael Zuber, one rental at a time, back with the one and only and amazing Mr. Greg Dickerson. How you doing, sir?
Doing great, Michael. Good to see you.
Oh, thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of this. As one of my experts every week, you're the one that I don't know how I want to say plays, invests, leverages, the opportunity to make some money in crypto over the years. Obviously, we've had an interesting week. We were already in crypto winter. Now we have this bad actor at FTX. And I was just curious, when you look at kind of the smoking rubble of the crypto space now, did you see this as a good thing, right? A cleansing? Do you see it as the end of the space? Do you see opportunity coming? There's just so many questions I have. I'll just sit back and let you go.
Yeah. So it's never good when people lose their money. So, in terms of that, there's a lot of people that have lost a lot of money, and it's gone back in this bear cycle, as Warren Buffett says, when the tide goes out, you see who's swimming naked. So there's a ton of leverage in crypto. Michael Burry put out something last year, I think it was, or maybe it was earlier this year, that he said, if you don't understand the leverage in crypto, you don't understand crypto. We're starting to see now with like 3AC, Celsius, FTX. I mean, it's just one after another. What we're finding out is that they're doing a number of things. They're taking customer deposits and leveraging that. So anyways, on FTX, specifically, they took customer deposits and used it to gamble and speculate and things like that. So, I mean, it was just outright fraud and theft. And that's where I've, coined the phrase, instead of Sam Bankman Fried, SBF, Sam Bankruptman Fraud. So that's kind of
Oh,
what
there
I'm
you go.
calling him.
I like
But
it. That's very
anyways,
creative.
yeah. Um, so it's very unfortunate. Now, this time in the market cycle is a good thing, because what's going to happen from all this is that in this country, we're going to really get on the fast track to regulation. And that's what the space really needs ultimately. You need regulation. The problem is the government can't decide on who's going to regulate it, CFTC or the SEC. And then they have to determine, what's a security, what's a commodity, where
Right.
Bitcoin could be Bitcoin's property, could be considered a commodity, where some of the tokens are like securities. It's almost like issuing stock.
Right.
The other problem with the space is that a lot of stuff's created out of thin air that has no backing. There's a lot of scams or just outright scams. They do rug pulls. They create these things, they throw them out there. But, FTX as a technology was a legitimate exchange, just like a stock exchange. For people to understand what that was and what it is, there's exchanges like Coinbase, Binance, FTX, and that's where you go to buy and sell cryptos. So you deposit your money with them, or you can buy stable coins like Tether or USDC, and you deposit it with them, and you use that to buy and sell cryptocurrencies. And you can leave those on the exchange, or you can move them off into a cold wallet or cold storage or whatever you want to do once you have access to those. But the problem is, these exchanges, other than Coinbase, are operating out of the United States. They're not providing any, legitimate audited financial statements. They're, telling you what their assets are, but they don't tell you what their liabilities are. And as we found out with FTX, it was upside down.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the wild, wild west. I mean, it's the riskiest of risk assets that you could possibly invest in. You have no guarantees, no protections, no insurance. For me personally, I've used Coinbase because they're in the United States. They're a publicly listed company. They are scrutinized and somewhat regulated by the SEC, but it doesn't mean that there's not things going on behind the scenes that we don't know about. It doesn't mean, and they sent an email out, a few months ago when stuff was going down, that if they end up going bankrupt or become insolvent, which they're not right now, and there's no indication that they will, but if they did, that your assets that they are holding custody of could become property of the bankruptcy. Now
Yeah,
they say
I
on
remember that email. Yeah, I remember
Yeah,
that.
and
Or
they
yeah.
say on their website that your property is your property. We don't take it. We don't leverage it. Here's a key phrase: we don't lend it out without your permission. So they're still doing it with permission, which is rehypothecating. And that's not a good thing, because who knows what they're rehypothecating it into? What are they lending it into? So, and then you have the ones that are outside the United States. Binance is the largest. A lot of people trust Binance. But Binance is, they've been barred in a lot of countries. They've been, fined, investigated. They're constantly being shut down. They're moving. They don't have a headquarters. They don't have a physical location. They're basically on the run. And, I think they're a house of cards as well. I don't have any
Yeah,
proof, evidence, documentation.
Yeah, the other thing on Binance, and again, I'm not in the space. I'm just a somebody who's devoured material over the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 days. They also seem to be, I think what FTX had this thing called FTT, that was their coin.
Right.
Binance apparently has a similar coin, BNB. And there was a Twitter handle, I think it was Ali. I'm going to forget her last name, but I've given her credit many times. She actually did a Twitter storm or a Twitter series, basically calling these FTT and BNB clown coins and relating them to McDonald's as an example, so the average person like myself can understand. McDonald's creates these clown bucks and starts giving them to their vendors and employees, and then takes it on their balance sheet because they can show that their partners about these clown bucks for X dollars. And oh, by the way, they have all these extra clown bucks that they haven't distributed. So suddenly they have more value on their balance sheet. Then they use these clown bucks as collateral for dollars that they then go out and do other things with and leverage up. And then Starbucks over time collects a bunch of clown bucks and they take them back to McDonald's and they can't get their money back. And then suddenly you have a crash. These are fake. There's no utility. These are just totally they're just clown bucks. It's crazy.
Well, and they're printing them, selling them, and then they take the money and do whatever they want. So yeah, that's kind of what happened with FTX and the FTT. That wasn't the whole thing. The big thing was he was taking customer deposits and doing bad things with it. So he is most likely probably should end up in jail. The problem is with these other exchanges, they don't operate in the US. So even if we have regulation, we can't regulate them. They're not in the country. We can ban them, we can bar them, but then people use, what are these IP things where you can hide your IP address and and a lot of these crypto YouTubers will tell people, hey, go get these devices so you can use these exchanges that are barred in the United States, which Binance is one of them. There's Binance US, but that's different than Binance. And you can't trade on those exchanges. So, you'll see that. But, the biggest issue with that, and that leads into like Tether. Okay. Now, overall, I'm very bullish on the space. I understand crypto well. I understand blockchain. I've been studying it for years. And I'm not doing anything with it right now because I'm waiting for all the dust to settle. And, there's better delta in stocks right now anyways, with the volatility. We'll talk about that next. But as far as crypto goes, it's not going anywhere. It's a nascent technology. There's a lot of good things coming from the crypto world and, use cases for NFTs, use cases for Bitcoin, what Bitcoin was initially created for, not what it's become with the leverage and the speculating and all that. But, it does have its uses. I have people in my businesses that pay me with cryptocurrencies. Usually it's a stable coin or something, and I'm not big on those. So I cash them out quick. I don't trust them. Anything can happen. But, some of this stuff will go away. Some of the exchanges are going to go away. Some of these tokens are going to go away. So that's the good thing about what's happening right now, crypto winter. It's going to wipe out a lot of the junk. And then hopefully we can get some good quality regulation. And then, the space can kind of move forward and evolve. And we saw, in technology in general, what that looks like in terms of opportunities. Bitcoin itself, how low will it go? I don't know. We've seen in the last 4 years, it's hit $3,000 to $4,000 twice in the last 4 years. So that is on the table. That's a probability. Can it go lower? Sure. Can it go to zero? Sure. That's not impossible because Bitcoin is maintained by a decentralized network, computers around the world. Miners are in trouble right now because it's costing them more to pay the electric bill than they can sell the Bitcoin. So if it gets to the point to where nobody can afford to keep computers on to maintain the network, well, the network goes down. Now, that's a big if, and that's a big systemic situation if that were to ever happen, but it is a possibility. It could also suffer an attack as the network gets weaker and the value comes down. Somebody can come in with a 51% attack and, kind of take the network over and create some, issues there and rehypothecate stuff like that. That's a little over my pay grade, that kind of stuff. That's more technical, but the system can be attacked by somebody taking over and controlling more than 51% of it. So there's risk there, but is that likely? Probably not. Is it probable? Yeah. I mean, it can happen. What's likely is Bitcoin is going to probably go around $10,000 to $14,000 and kind of hang in that range like we've been hanging up here. I think that's your ultimate potential where a low can be put in. And if we don't have any other systemic cracks or risk, which as it gets lower, a lot more stuff's going to collapse and happen and fall out, more people will get liquidated. It can kind of start carving a bottom out there, depending on what happens in traditional finance and those other things. So right now, I think that's where it's going. I don't think it's gone. I don't think it's over. I don't think it's going to zero or ending. I think it's just going to wash a lot of stuff out. We'll get clarity and regulatory direction, and the space can reset itself and then start over like it does pretty much every 4 years.
Yeah, it's one thing to look at. Again, I'm not a crypto bull fan or whatever, but this just feels to me very much like what I personally went through in the dot-com crash, right? We had all of these companies that weren't doing anything but being valued at crazy numbers. Most of them went to zero, but we had a few, Apple or Amazon and others came out of that kind of fire. I suspect, as I sit here as a very, very casual observer, that there will be a few people that survive. They will probably be stronger for it. And more importantly, there will be infrastructure put in place where we don't have, you know, BS coins created to steal money from people. So I think at the end of this, which could be months, quarters, or even years away, depending on how long regulation is, crypto could actually be stronger coming out of this. At least that's how I look at the fire. And again, I don't have I have a horse in the race, but it seems to me that this horrible, horrible situation might actually lead to some good things. Is that a fair thing to say?
Yeah, absolutely. It's what I just said, but this is exactly like the .com thing. And when you look at a lot of the stocks that made it through, the Amazons and the other stocks that were around back then, Google, I mean, here was your peak right here in the .com, and then this is where we just went to. I mean, literally, it's a blip in the whole scheme. Right. Now, where we just went to, was a very distorted, unrealistic, Fed liquidity driven top, but take a look at the pre-pandemic highs of 2020. It's still a mega, it's still just a blip in the radar from the tech sector of where things went to. So crypto could look the same. Now, I'm not saying Bitcoin's going to 500,000 or a million or anything like that. I don't believe that right now. I don't believe that. I don't see that as likely or probable. Could it return to all-time highs once everything gets cleaned out and all that? We were there before. It's hit 21,000 in a normal. We were in a QE environment. So, I mean, that's definitely realistic. That's definitely probable. I don't know how long that'll take. I don't know what can happen. I don't know what will happen or when, but I know what can happen. So all we can look at is where things have gone. But those have been bull market, Fed driven, QE, zero interest rate environment. And one more thing on, Tether. So Tether, so here's the thing for people watching that don't understand. Don't trust exchanges. Make sure that you're not investing with more than you're able to lose. That and understand that you're taking that risk. It's all going to go away. So look at it like venture capital. That's how I look at it. You're investing and you're expecting to lose it all, because that's how venture capital works. One or two might play out, but most of them are not. You're just going to lose your money. So you average it out. That's what this space is right now. And with Tether, that's another one. Just like Binance, they're not providing any documentation, legitimate, audited by a legitimate American auditor, showing their information. They keep saying, we're going to do it, we're going to do it, we're going to do it, and they don't. And this is the same pattern we've seen with all these other ones when they collapse. And, that's a big one where they're just printing tethers. Here's the thing to understand about Tether. How are they making their money? They're issuing a stable coin, dollar for dollar. You put $1 in, you get a stable coin. That's expensive to maintain that at $60 billion.
You would
think. So how are they making any money? They're taking your money that you're depositing in exchange for a tether, and they're investing it. Now, they were investing in risky commercial paper. They're investing, who knows, they're taking it and they're buying tokens and reselling. They're doing the same thing that FTX was doing. They just haven't been caught because, again, they've been traveling all around the world. Now they've settled, I think, in Belgium because, it's the money laundering capitals of the world where these companies are settling. And these areas where they can get away with stuff. So, Tether is a ticking time bomb too. It's just a matter of time before that explodes, if things get low enough and people start redeeming fast enough, because now they say all our money's, or half our money's in treasuries. Well, treasuries, you can't liquidate dollar for dollar if you're on a fire sale. You have to sell them at a discount. Treasuries, you're buying for maturity. You don't get your money back unless you hold them to maturity.
Maturity, yeah. Exactly.
So, those are risk assets, not risk, but they're risky in the event of a bank run. So you really can't trust Tether. You can't trust any of the exchanges, even Coinbase in the United States, regulated public company, all that. I still don't trust them. I don't keep money on there. I'm in and out. I'll do my thing and I'll take it off, because if they go bankrupt, you're locked up. So you got to be very careful, and you have to be very calculating, and you have to make sure that whatever you're putting out there, you're willing and able to lose.
Well, this is why I don't really play in this space, but it is fascinating to watch from the sidelines. So you have an amazing YouTube channel where you talk about this stuff. and you've been doing it for a long time, so people can go back and look at all your content. Where would they find that?
Yeah, gregdickerson.com. Yeah, I do daily updates on the markets, crypto, all that kind of stuff. And it's a lot of fun. And like I said, to me, it's venture capital. I'm opportunistic, and I'm not risking, maybe 10% of liquid. That's it.
Nice. Very cool. Thanks.